Thank you very much for joining us today. We thought it'd be a great opportunity to introduce Shivani, our holistic lifestyle coach at Levitise. Shivani's been with us for 6 months now, and she's had made some fantastic progress and some really great clients that we've had a lot of fun enjoying the journey with them and really getting great results. And I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to introduce Shivani to you and find out a little bit more about what she does and how she works her magic and how we can help people. So thanks very much for joining us today, Shivani. It'd be great if you could tell us maybe a little bit about your background, how you got into coaching and the kind of clients you work with.
Thank you for having me, Alex. And I think it's been a great 6 months working with Levitise. But let me address your question. My background is I've worked post-graduation in business management. I worked for about 12 years in the consumer insight industry. And then I took off and was freelancing in the internet marketing industry for some time. And that was a time when I think I was looking towards doing something that I really loved to do. And I went back to studying cognitive behavior therapy, psychology, got my certifications in coaching, and kind of, with a lot of exploration, figured out that this is, something that I love doing, and this is what I want to do. It was a lot of exploring. It didn't happen, like the moment I quit, it was not as if I'm on this journey. So it was a little bit of settling down into not being in the corporate life, so to speak. And then it was a journey towards figuring out what I really, really, want to do. And that's the journey that took me towards coaching. The reason I think I love coaching so much is because it's really helping people. It's to do with mindsets. It's also exploring the potential that the human being has, which unfortunately most of us actually stay back from because we don't realize that we have that kind of potential. And having been in the corporate world, having a little bit of a backstory here. I was a working mother, completely stressed out, a workaholic and a perfectionist at that, trying to do, everything and trying to do everything, perfectly. And I guess it was my journey of coming out of that big black hole and, grappling my way one step, after another, which was something that made me realize that there are so many of us who are struggling with the same thing, and which is why I coach in the area of stress management, work-life balance management, and essentially, empowering oneself to really be you. What is sometimes called a queendom in certain places.
Yeah, that's great. So do you find that you work mostly with people that have a similar sort of background to you?
Yes, most of my work is with senior busy professionals around 40 to 60 years of age who've kind of made it, and there's something that's not okay. Either along the way they've ended up with a lot of stress, a lot of physical, some physical issue or the other, maybe it's sleep. But at the end of the day, there is this whole thing that something's not okay, right? I mean, you've got it, you've got success, you're a CEO, you're a vice president, you're doing your own thing, your own startup, and you're doing well, but things are not okay. And if I was to say the kind of issues that I address with people, it's in the area of stress management, work-life balance. I've talked about these, some come. And it's interesting, what happens is that, people don't recognize that it's stress that's causing them issues. Mm-hmm. So they would come in talking about how they're just not feeling okay, or they can't make decisions, or something is bothering them, or their physical health is actually compromised. Either it's the endocrine gland, or there's some sleep issue, or breathing issue, or weight issue. And as we discover, when we go forward and we discover that a lot of such situations are actually rooted in stress. And once you kind of relearn helpful ways of thinking, things kind of all fall in place.
Yeah, no, I would, I think that's brilliant, and I would echo that completely. I was thinking, so I've been sort of running Levitise for 3.5 years now, and certainly we worked on, stress and emotional management. It's an essential part of the package. But of course, a lot of what we did previously before you joined was looking at, nutrition, specific health issues, and how to specifically address those at the root cause. Obviously, exercise, breathing, hydration, environmental toxicity, and all that. But I came to the point where I realized that if you didn't quite aggressively really address the stress element in people's life, you couldn't necessarily get all the way there. And generally, the less stressed you are, the more tolerant you are of anything else that might be going a bit skew. So it's very interesting, and certainly some of the most recent people that we've worked with, whereas I did a little bit on nutrition, a little bit of here and there, you would spend a lion's share of the coaching sessions working on stress and stress and emotional management, and all the physical ailments would just resolve from sort of leaky gut, hyperthyroid issues, adrenal problems, hormonal issues, women with heavy menses and painful periods. Once you reduce the stress, all of this went away, and it also allows more flexibility in the diet. So if you do eat a little bit of sugar now and then, it's not a big deal. So I thought that's brilliant, and to me, it was, I knew it was important. I didn't realize how important it is until now. So that's been brilliant, and I very much really appreciate what you've done.
Would you believe me if I told you that, something as common a word as optimism, and if we can actually imbibe it into our own lives, how much of a difference that makes towards our cardiovascular health? It actually is preventive in nature. And this is a study done by Harvard, and they've kind of pulled out 200 studies and done a meta-analysis of the whole thing and arrived at this conclusion. So, it might seem very simple, optimism, but then it has to do with the way we think and how many layers of information we have topped on to ourselves about how things should be. And we don't really realize, who we are and what we really want to do. So getting past those layers that have been, put on in our brains, in our mind, and in the way we think, and then discovering really what our true power is, and being able to, take life from there with that mindset, helps you. Stress and emotional management don't remain issues anymore if you start to really think in a helpful way.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm not familiar with that study, but it's great. You'll have to send it to me. But I do know that the most common time, if we look at the opposite of optimism and pessimism, the most common time to have a heart attack is Monday morning when you're thinking about work. Not, as doctors would have you believe, after you've just finished the Big Mac, fries and milkshake. It is, not necessarily food related at all. So yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, so that's great. So let's say you're busy, stressed out individual. You're working, you're in senior management, you've got family, you've got kids. There's a lot going on, okay? But you realize that something needs to change, or you've been thinking that maybe something needs to change. You've tried the diet, you've tried the exercise. Maybe that's not happened, and then you think about the options that are open to you. Well, I can go to the doctor. I'm not sure what he can do. I can go and smash it in the gym. I tried that before. It didn't really change the mindset, Yeah, I can tweak the diet, but maybe I don't have the willpower or the time to make those changes. So the options kind of open, and then we think of things like psychiatry or traditional psychology. Well, what is why does coaching work? Particularly your style of lifestyle coaching listed, why does that work, and how does it differ from the more traditional methods which we may not feel so comfortable using?
Okay, to put it a bit simplistically, and maybe that's keywords that people can take away, is that See, psychotherapy, and again, we say, psychologist or whatever, there are different kinds that exist. So a psychiatrist is somebody who will medically, diagnose you and give you medication. In terms of psychotherapy, it is, one of the psychotherapies that is used is talk therapy. But most of the discussions that are going on, or the course or path of inquiry that's taken in such situations, is discussing about the past and then telling the individual as to this is what you should do. And it is mainly focused on recovery and recovery of some issue that somebody has had. Counseling is closer to coaching, but at the same time, it's more remedial in nature. It talks about, again, trying to get into the past and figure out what's happening. It's a little bit of asking, but it is also, a lot of telling involved in coaching and in counseling. Coaching, however, is a partnering. Okay, it's like a co-creative process. It really helps the coachee or the client really maximize their potential, and that's the part that I love about coaching. It's really looking at where the client is right now and where all they could be. Obviously, when I say that coaching is not really talking about the past and stuff like that, it doesn't mean that the past does not come up in reference in coaching conversations. Obviously, it does. However, the focus or the intent is towards maximizing the potential that the individual has and moving. It's also very action oriented. It's not just talking about things that are going on or just the mindset. So typically every coaching session would end with certain action steps or action points. So it's moving forward. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a co-creative process. So a co-creative process means where the individual decides what they want to do and at what pace they want to do. So you might ask, okay, so what are you doing over there, right? If I'm going to be deciding what steps I'm going to take. Now, think of it like a boat. Okay, so the rudder of the boat is in your hands. And when I say your, I mean the client's hands, right? So the rudder of the boat is in the client's hands. They decide whether to turn left or whether to turn right, whether to kind of steam on ahead faster or slower. The coach is standing there with you with a big, huge light, okay, like a lighthouse light. And that's what the coach does. The coach, maybe turns the light a little bit and says, okay, hey, look at that, what would you make of that? The idea behind that is that every human being is unique. And while there can be model after model and framework after framework, and we do have some. So when we do webinars as coaches and stuff, we do, tell you the techniques of stress management and stuff. It's a very telling approach, but that's suitable for when you just want to kind of, bring a certain level of awareness to everybody that, hey, this could be the issue. If you're facing these things, then maybe this is something you can try on your own. However, when you're coaching, it's really all about you. It's about exactly how you think. And I know it's a bit of a hashed word where, everybody is unique. In my line of work, I can see that in action. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I have coached, I have not come across. So while I may have come across similar problems, each one of them, and it's amazing. It gives me goose pimples when they get their aha moment and they understand, okay, this is what I'm going to do, or this is working for me. And believe me, the solutions are all different. And what really, which angle I will throw the light depends on the co-creation of the relationship and which direction you actually feel, okay, this makes sense to me, is different for different people. And so yeah, that's what coaching is.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That makes a lot of sense. When I think about it from a nutritional point of view as well, everyone's completely unique, and you might try something with one client and it worked brilliantly, and you try the next one's like a total failure. So, but it works better if the client is involved in that process rather than a traditional nutritionist, which would just say, okay, here's a list of things you should eat, here's a list of things you shouldn't eat, off you go. It's like, okay, what's going to work for you, and what do you think is going to be make the best impact? So yeah, it's a similar And I was watching this TV show last night called Undone with Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad, and the protagonist, her mother forced her to go and see a psychologist, and they talked about, and she was very reluctantly, and she said something, and the psychologist said, "Let me give you a little bit of advice." And I thought Shivani would never say that. And that is exactly what I thought was the difference between coaching and traditional counselling, where it is, giving a lot of advice, but actually, with the coaching, the client gives the advice. The client works out his own advice with the help of the coach steering them in that direction.
No, I mean, you were so bang on when you said about nutrition, that here's a diet. I mean, diets are available on the internet. Okay, so many of them. How many of us are able to follow a certain diet? And then again, how many of us will get the results from a standard diet? Not many. So there are two aspects of it, I think. One which you know best, which is about how different kinds of styles help different people. And the other thing is also, are you able to stick to that diet? I mean, there are so many people who come to me who are wanting to, let's say, work on their body, and then they're not able to stick to a prescribed diet, because that's really not what their body requires, right? And somewhere they have to figure that thing out for with certain research and all that stuff, but with some trial and error also.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a few minutes left. I'd just be interested to explore with you, what are some of the obstacles that people face when working with a coach it's certainly become a lot more common practice because it is so effective, but it's still relatively new. What do you think are some of the obstacles? Why would people not approach a coach? Is it a lack of awareness? Is there some fear there? What do you think are some of the common hurdles?
You said it, Alex. The first thing is that while it's easy to see a physical wound, right, or easy to judge that, okay, I'm not able to fall asleep, or I'm just too tired all the time, it's relatively easy, or a blood report will tell you that you're lacking in something or the other. There is no blood report for let's say a stress or a mental thing that you need to work on. And that's one of the main reasons that awareness is the whole name of the game, in terms of the fact that, are you aware of the fact that you are stressed? Are you stressed? Are you tense? Do you need better work-life balance? Are you really living a fulfilled work? It's only when you start asking those questions are you going to then approach a coach. Also, one more thing, the understanding of how much mental illnesses can actually affect your body and keep you from reaching where you are. It's like, it's like Matrix. So you're living in a world, and you don't know that this is a box and I can do much more, right? So that I would say is probably one of the constraints or obstacles that people face. The other one that I have felt, especially with people who probably meet me for the first time and they're not still sure about it, is that they're expecting a miracle. Yeah, so they want to, okay, you go to a coach, you tell me what to do, give me tips and tricks. We're living in a 2-minute world. A video which is a long video or a longer film, long articles, they're not able to catch and hold people's attention. And so it's, a 2-minute world kind of a situation which we are in. So I'm being, very honest about here. It's not a miracle, right? It's a process of exploration, and it's exploration inside your head. And if understand this, that if for so many years you've been living in a certain kind of mindset, and even if we talk physiologically about, the brain, the impulses and the brain paths that have been developed for so long, it's like when you drive from work to office, from work to home, you don't really think about it, right? You just automatically take a left or take a right, and you reach your destination because you've done it so many times. So if you have lived in a certain kind of a mindset and you've had a certain kind of thought or belief for so many years, it's not like abracadabra and it's gone, right? It does take time. How much time it takes depends on how open you are and how much effort you are willing to put in. And sometimes, the coach is there with you always, yes, motivating you, supporting you, and even being an accountability partner. But sometimes it is a duty of the coach to ask some challenging questions. So people sometimes shy away from that. So these are the kind of things that I feel, but if you're willing to explore and really, really achieve your potential and leave away all this, stress and even physical issues, which obviously vanish once you're kind of fine in the head area, miraculously sometimes actually, then yeah, and then I'm sure the person would be willing to try the coaching.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. No, you touched on so many important points there, which I would like to go into, but we don't have enough time today because we just want to keep this to 20 minutes. That's really good, and I think, yeah, I think you're right. The awareness and the openness to explore these opportunities gets you their quickest results. And I'm just thinking of a couple of clients in particular that had amazing progress in basically just 2 months, which is really, really quick. But of course, on my holistic lifestyle coaching course in San Diego in the States, they said, look, if it takes 20 years to fill up your garage with junk, it'll take 10 years to clean it out. I think that's quite a little bit pessimistic, but it's very dependent, and it really depends on how willing you are and how open you are. So that's great.
It's all about how far you want to go at the end of the
day.
When you have a very specific issue you want to address, that 2 months is almost always enough. But if you want to say, okay, I want to go further, I want to figure this out, I want to figure then obviously it does.
Yeah. And to me, it's also brilliant that when people work with us and they just have generally have a health complaint, whether that's a physical health or mental health or both. It's so interesting that as these kind of go away and people start feeling better and they start saying things, oh, by the way, I quit my job and I've got a position in a new company. We don't do any career coaching, but the universe just brings them awesome solutions as they start feeling better.
Absolutely.
And really, I think just by getting people to feel better physically and mentally, then everything else just starts kind of happening in a better way, which is great.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's leave it at that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
Yeah, pleasure. See you in the studio.